Hey, welcome to 49ers After Dark. That's Jessie Naylor. I'm 49ersQCmerch.com. That's my name. You should check me out. I'm just getting started. The Niners had their final practice before preseason game. We're going to talk about that, the upcoming game at some point. We're going to talk about Lance and his low completion percentage and why it is low. But first, we're going to talk about something Kyle Shanahan said on the I Am Athlete podcast. If you don't know what that is, that's the podcast with Brendan Marshall. Podcast with Brendan Marshall and Pac-Man Jones is the podcast that Martellus Bennett went on and called Jimmy Garoppolo a bitch. Sorry, but I'm quoting. And then Julian Edelman went on that podcast and said, I can see why Marty would say that. So now Kyle went on that podcast. Tell the good people watching what he said.
First of all, let's address the name change. 49ersQCmerch.com. Is that like Meta World Peace?
Yes, exactly. It's one name. I have no last name. It's just 49ersQCmerch.com. That's it.
I feel like everybody big has only one name.
That's right.
You've made it.
But now it's got a .com too. I think that's kind of next level.
That's a good point. Very good point.
.com.
Yeah, no, that's very important. Yeah, so he was on I Am Athlete, which, as you know, those guys were there at training camp last week asking questions. I don't know if you got to talk to them at all or what have you, but they had him on their podcast, and he finally spilled the beans that he was between Lance and Mac Jones basically the whole time. Those were the two. Now, I think that we talked about this a lot, right? And we've kind of gone back and forth as far as what our opinions are and who he really wanted. Ultimately, he did land on Lance. As a 49er fan, thank God for that. But Mac Jones was the other guy. It was never Justin Fields, which is kind of interesting to hear because I know that 49er fans for a long time were pushing that Justin Fields to San Francisco narrative. So it's interesting to hear finally that those were the guys that he was between.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he said that. But at the same time, like, why is he talking about this? Like, he's been asked this question a million times, and all of a sudden Brandon Marshall asks it and he melts.
Right.
I understand why he didn't answer the question for a long time. It's like, who cares? It's in the past, and you picked Trey Lance. So ultimately, it doesn't matter how you got there, and what you need to do is put your full support behind Trey Lance. So when Kyle gives this insight, is he doing what's best for the organization, or is he acting in his own self-interest? I would argue it's the second one, because who cares? Like, all you're really saying is, yeah, I like Mac Jones too, and I had a tough decision on my hands. I had to flip a coin. I don't know. It was tough. Like, really what Trey Lance and the whole Niners organization wants you to say is Trey Lance is the guy. I love Trey Lance. I mean, you can say I like Mac Jones too, but what you say is I love Trey Lance. My favorite quarterback I evaluated. Why can't he do that? That's what Jim Harbaugh did. And I don't even think he meant it half the time, but he understood as a former quarterback that that's what quarterbacks need.
Yeah, what do you have to gain? Here's the exact quote, just to be fair. There were two guys that I really wanted, Mac and Trey. They were the two guys that we were locked in on from the beginning.
Thanks, Kyle. I mean,
you're right.
You can't make up your mind on Jimmy Garoppolo. He's still here. Now you're telling people that it was like, oh, Mac, Trey. Like, not inspiring confidence in Trey, bro.
Yeah, these are the little things, right? And I'm big on the little things, and especially when it comes to leadership. And this is that area, Kyle, where I really felt like you made a lot of strides last year, but this is a total regression. Like, why now? Now is not the time. You lie through your teeth. I get you go on these podcasts and they're all about being honest and you're chilling with your boys and whatever. You have nothing to gain from saying that, even if it's the truth, which obviously it is. Even if it's the truth, you have nothing to gain. Literally nothing. All you're doing is alienating your quarterback right now at this moment when he's about to take over your team permanently.
I mean, he gets the reputation as being the number one offensive coach in the league, but he's never developed a young quarterback. And this is the kind of stuff we're looking. I'm not saying he can't develop Trey or he hasn't or won't, but we don't know yet. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, is this the way to boost the confidence of a 22-year-old first-year starter? Probably not. And again, Kyle's never played the position, and his whole thing throughout his whole career has been keeping it real with vets. He was 29, and he got Donovan McNabb in Washington and was just apparently just eviscerate him in meetings. And McNabb was like, "You can't talk to me that way." And Kyle's like, "Yes, I can. Yes, I can." So can he actually talk a different way, help a quarterback? Because I don't know. I mean, I think his style was good for Matt Ryan. Is it good for a 22-year-old? We'll see. I'm not saying it's not, but dude, Kyle, how tone deaf can you be?
Well, even Matt Ryan had to pull him aside after that first season together. But
Yeah.
Matt Ryan had that autonomy to do so. Matt Ryan was a leader. He was established in the league. And Shanahan, although was established, he wasn't quite Shanahan yet, right? He hadn't built that fully yet. And so he pulled him aside and was like, "Listen, this relationship is not working. We need to change things up. I need to have input. That's the way it's got to be going forward." They agreed over drinks, and then they had the magical season. But Trey Lance is certainly not at that point in his career where you can have those conversations. Jimmy, I believe, was always too passive to have those conversations. And I think that Shanahan will steamroll you if you're not willing to have those conversations.
There's also another thing with Kyle. He's always kind of distancing himself from his own quarterback, and he's been doing it for 10 years. He never was all in with RG3. I mean, he made that clear. I want Kirk. The ownership forced me to have RG3. Then he gets to the Niners and is real clear. I didn't really want Jimmy Garoppolo. I wanted Kirk. But you know what? I'll do the best I can because I'm great. But this isn't the guy I want. Now it's like, okay, you got the guy you want. Great. No more excuses. And he's like, well, actually, I also wanted Mac Jones, but and then that like opens the door to conspiracy theories. Well, then how did Jed land on Trey Lance? Did Jed tell you couldn't take Mac Jones? Remember, there was a lot of pressure from the fan base, from everyone. You better not take Mac Jones. Who blinked? A lot of Kyle supporters could say, well, it wasn't Kyle. It wasn't Kyle. Kyle liked Mac, but but we'll never know. And he's creating the doubt, and I don't like it, man. What you should be doing is ending the doubt. End the doubt for Trey's sake, for everyone's sake.
The narrative is wide open again, right? Now we can go back and play the what ifs. Well, he was frustrated on that Monday press conference that he wasn't even supposed to show up to, and everybody was reporting it was Mac Jones, and what if, and there's just no reason for it. There's no winning in this. I appreciate his honesty. I do. I love to hear real things, and he's always one of those guys that's really, really honest with the media, almost to a fault. And this is one of those times, man. It's like, this is not it, Kyle. Like, this is the worst timing for something like this. If you had said this last year, that would have been one thing. You could have gotten over it. Trey's our guy, whatever. But you're doing this right before he's about to take over the team. I don't like it.
And again, like, he's been asked this question hundreds of times, and he never answered it. Brandon Marshall asked, like, his dad's former player, and all of a sudden Kyle's starstruck. Like, in the group press conference, Brandon Marshall asked him, like, what's your go-to play call on 3rd and long against quarters? If I asked that question, Kyle wouldn't answer specifically. I mean, he just laid out an entire play call for Brandon Marshall. So it's like, and he did the same thing on the podcast with Sean McVay. Sean McVay was like, oh, I was a little surprised you went with Trey Lance there. He was like, well, yeah, I kind of wanted Matthew Stafford, but you beat me to the punch on that. It's like, thanks, Kyle. Like, you would never say that to us. Can you rein it in a little bit? I'm sure the Niners are like, oh, we didn't prep you to say that. What?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, end of the day, though, I think most 49er fans are happy with Lance. And I don't know. It's interesting because this conversation came up earlier between some friends and I, and it was before this Mac Jones thing came out. But we were talking about areas that Trey is possibly going to struggle, and somebody had brought up man coverage. And for me, I actually think he's going to really benefit in man coverage because when those corners turn their back, he has that second gear. He can take off and run to where Mac Jones, when you look at Mac Jones last year, he was around 50% completion in man coverage. And zone coverage, he was in the mid-70s. But that's because he can't run. He just has to throw into tight coverage. Trey Lance has that extra thing about him, and that's where Shanahan made the right decision, is he has that extra thing that Mac's just never going to have in his game.
No, he definitely made the right decision, but Trey isn't going to become the next Josh Allen if Kyle isn't 100% invested. I think you need a coach to be 100% invested, and we all assume Kyle is, but we don't know. And stuff like this makes me wonder. So Kyle, stop saying stuff like this. Start doing things that reassure Trey and your fan base, because Jimmy's there at practice. Mac Jones is coming out of your mouth. Why don't you just
Here's the thing, Grant, is I think
Hedging, hedge city.
you
Hedge
just said something
central.
really important, right?
Yeah.
You came up with a possible narrative that he's not all in on Trey.
Yeah.
Now, coming up with that narrative out of the blue, you'd sound crazy. But now he's left the door open for a narrative like that to be brought to the public. And that's the
there's
issue.
a million people on Twitter that are looking to pounce all over something like this. I don't need to say
sure.
names.
For sure.
The Mech says Niners after dark. At least it's dark where I live. It's extremely dark in Oakland right now. No, it's not. But dark's a mind state. It's a state of mind.
It's
dark is the best, just like Trey Lance. Thank you, Niners. Daddy. One more. El Penguin says, when Niners first drafted Lance, I was relieved that they didn't start him. Had PTSD from the Smith years versus Rodgers. You've helped me realize game reps count. Should have played the kid. Hashtag should have played the kid. That's a shirt.
That is a shirt. We need that one.
All right, let's get into something I've really been thinking a lot about. Trey Lance's low completion percentage. People just plop it down on Twitter and say, boom, it's not good enough. Jimmy Garoppolo was better. Let's talk about why Trey Lance's completion percentage is low. I mean, obviously, we've seen Jimmy. He throws a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage. A lot. That's why his completion percentage is. He's not a particularly accurate quarterback. He throws a nice screen pass. He throws a nice swing pass. I'll give him credit for that. I mean, that's what he does. Trey Lance less so. So what I think you saw last year is while Jimmy completed 68% of his passes and Trey completed 57%, their yards per attempt was the same. Okay? Completion percentage doesn't really matter. Yards per attempt is more important. Completion percentage is measuring accuracy of the throw, but also openness of the receiver and his ability to catch it. 3 things, okay? And so I wanted to isolate some variables because it seems to me that some of the receivers he's throwing to are getting open more than others. So I just went through my notes. I keep good notes. And I got targets and completions to 6 different receivers, okay? This is important. So let's start with Ayuk, okay? Ayuk is leading the team in targets, 37 by far, 10 more than anyone else. Having what Kyle Shanahan said is a MVP type camp. 22 at 37, 59%. And that's a guy who's kicking ass. And it's not because, Trey's missing left and right. It's like, man, these corners are really good. So Ayuk is working his ass off just to barely crack 60%, almost approach 60%. Deebo, 9 of 17, 52%. He's not quite in regular season form yet. We'll talk about him in a minute. Jennings, 8 of 16. Not great. Ray, 5 of 12. Then it gets good. Elijah Mitchell, 7 of 11. Kyle Juszczyk, 7 of 10. George Kittle, 19 of 27, 70%. So here's what I'm saying. If Lance can hit Kittle 70% of the time, maybe that means that Lance isn't particularly inaccurate. If he were inaccurate, he wouldn't be hitting anyone 70% of the time. And these throws to Kittle aren't in the flat. They're at all 3 levels of the field. So to me, what I'm seeing is, wide receivers getting their asses kicked in camp. Wide receivers who are getting clamped up, except for Ayuk, who's winning sort of late in the down. That's not on the quarterback. And that's why I feel like if Jimmy Garoppolo in these practices, his completion percentage, it might be a little bit higher because of his sheer commitment to check the ball down. That's it.
This is what I picked up from those stats is the 3 guys that you mentioned that have a high percentage in their favor are 3 guys that are most likely catching the ball near the line of scrimmage. Like, yes, Kittle's running routes deeper at times,
yes,
but he also is going to catch the ball near the line of scrimmage a lot more than a wide receiver would. Now, Deebo can be a different story, but so far he hasn't really been a part of things. So to me, what I'm hearing you say is if Trey Lance was running the Jimmy game plan, he would be in the mid-60s himself. That's what I'm hearing you say. And what's really happening is he's throwing downfield a lot. He's taking a lot of chances, and he's throwing into tight coverage where the wide receivers just are not getting open. And not only that, we know that the drops are aplenty. I feel like I read a report every day, 2 drops today, 2 drops today, 2 drops today, every single practice. And I get drops are a part of the game, but when you are charting not real games, those drops matter. And when you've only thrown around 100 passes and you've had double-digit drops, that is significant. That's a big amount of drops. I'm more concerned about the drops than I am Trey Lance playing well this season, because the drops were an issue last year as well.
I just think it's interesting that when he's targeting starting tight ends and running backs, starting tight end, starting running back, starting fullback, he's at 70% completions, as he should be. When he's targeting wide receivers, he's at like 50. And to me, like, it's some inaccuracy, some of the depth of target, and some of these guys being overmatched by the corners. What I'm seeing in camp is corners outplaying the wide receivers. If Deebo would come around and come alive, that would really help. And the D-line outplaying the offensive line. And I'm seeing here the running backs and the tight ends outplaying the linebackers and the safeties, at least in the pass game. So it's not like, look, if Kittle was catching 50% of his targets, I'd be like, man, Lance is off. It is Lance, but not. Kittle's having a good camp. Lance is hitting them. There's a connection there. Deebo is not himself. Maybe he'll get there. Ayuk is doing the best he is, but he's not elite. He's good, not great. And he has a hell of a time against Mosley and Travarius Ward. To his credit, he's beating him more than he's losing, but still 59%. Right. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and to be real with you, this is a part of the game that I feel like Shanahan has underutilized since he's been here. When they went and made the moves that they made, even in 2017, to bring in a guy like Juszczyk, I really thought that they were going to take advantage of a lot of those tight ends and those the linebackers in those matchups. It's never really fully materialized. And realistically, our tight ends and running back / fullback have an advantage against every linebacking core in the league outside of maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's something they need to figure out and utilize, make the game easier. And it's something that they could have certainly exploited against the Rams. They chose not to. And I hope that they figure it out. Get Trey some of those easy completions, because one thing I have noticed, it sounds like Trey starts out slow in practice, and he certainly has started out slow in the few games that he's played. So get him into the game.
Yeah. I feel like Niner fans are just preparing themselves for the worst. And so they hear these bad practices and they're like, Grant, don't give me context that he's going to suck. I don't care. I just want to remind you, like, he's throwing a lot of passes to Jermichael Hasty, Trey Sermon, Tyler Croft, Malik Turner, Marcus Johnson, like guys he's not throwing to in the games. When he's in the games, he's going to be throwing to Kittle, Ayuk, Deebo, Juice, Mitchell, and maybe Jennings and Ray if they get their act together. But right now, like, he has a legitimate good rapport with 3 of those dudes. 4 of them. Ayuk is good. And so what I'm trying to say is the Niners corners are really good. They're really good. Mosley's way better than he was 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Travarius Ward is really good. And Deebo hasn't really stepped up yet. So, I mean, I think that kind of explains a little bit. It's not like in the past, the Niners would play off coverage. They play zone coverage, and they would just say, no big plays. Give up as many short passes as you want. Now they're like, no short passes against us. Absolutely not. And so the Niners have to throw the ball down the field, and the wide receivers aren't winning that much other than Ayuk. I don't know. Kittle is. Kittle's having a great camp. I haven't been giving him enough credit. 19 catches on 27 targets. They just have to, if they can keep Kittle healthy, Lance is going to have a really good year. Kittle's going to have a really good year. Yeah.
Yeah, Kittle's going to be a big part of this offense this year. He really is. And now they finally can take advantage of Kittle up the seam, I think, is a nightmare for defenses. Get him one-on-one with a linebacker, it's a wrap. And now they can take advantage of those things. I'm looking forward to it. But, when we talk about struggles real quick of training camp, Russell Wilson is struggling mightily. Nobody's worried about him. You've got Mac Jones struggling. How many people are worried about him? Fields. This is not an isolated incident with Trey Lance. This is a league-wide thing for the most part, outside of a few guys.
Yeah, and it's like, you're not game planning, and you're throwing to all these different players. When they had a move the ball period that one a couple of days ago where he was so good, he threw to Kittle 3 times in one drive. I don't ever do stuff like that. But in a game, if they have to win, I'm guessing they're going to do stuff like that because the Kittle-Lance connection is on point right now. So I'm just saying, I have a feeling it's going to look a lot, the offense in general is running is going to look a lot better in the regular season than it has in camp, and it will in the preseason. Because again, they're not game planning in the preseason. When they finally game plan, you're going to see like an extremely diverse run game and an extremely diverse play action package.
Well, and when they are game planning, it's in the mock 2-minute drills, right? Because
Yep.
they're actually putting plays together and
Yes.
stacking them. And look at
Yes.
how good he looks in those
Yep.
situations.
Yep.
So
Anyway, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. Like if this were year 4 of Trey Lance, I'd be like, I don't know if they should re-sign him. That's a lot of money. But this is year 1, essentially. And all he has to do is prove that he was better than the previous guy and justify, or not even better, at the same level. Because if he improves, then you've already shown you can't go anywhere with Jimmy Garoppolo. So he's on, like, to me, the the bar to judge Trey Lance is lower this year, but it ratchets up as time goes on. That's the way I look at
for
it.
sure. Absolutely. You're 100% right about that. But also, we should clear something else up because a lot of people have this. Their comeback to this is, well, why wouldn't you hold Garoppolo to the same accountability? Because we knew what Garoppolo was. We had seen that song and dance. We knew what it was. And when we saw that he was still the same guy in camp, we knew exactly what we were about to get. With Trey Lance, we have no idea. I know I'm a big Trey Lance guy. I don't know for sure if he's going to be great. I think he's going to be great, but I don't know that. If you think he's going to suck, you don't know that either. We do not know what Trey Lance is eventually going to be. So, him struggling now, I'm not going to make a big deal out of the ups or the downs because I don't know what he's eventually going to be. I have no idea, and neither do you.
Again, I mean, he's completing 70% of his passes to Kittle, 70% to Juice, 65% to Mitchell, 60% to Ayuk. Once Deebo comes around, it seems like he's going to be completing a high percent of his throws. You know what I'm saying? I feel like
Yeah,
just all I'm saying is that the topic was the low completion percentage in camp. I
of
think it's a
course.
little bit of a function of Jennings and Ray and Croft and Sermon and, you know what I'm saying? Once they get
Yeah.
in the games, like the guys who are catching the ball actually are catching it efficiently from Lance. I don't think it's that big of a deal. We'll see. That's all I'm saying. I think the
Also,
context shows that he's completing a high percentage of the people he needs to throw to.
here's what we don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know what they are trying to work on in certain situations. Today, it sounds like they were trying to throw deep right an
Yeah.
awful lot. Like they
Yes.
were specifically trying to figure that out. That's not actual football. That's you practicing, which is exactly what this is. One thing I can tell
Hold
you,
on real quick, though. On those,
yeah,
it's 4 throws deep up the right sideline. He hit
yep,
none of them. If that's all you say, bad job, Trey Lance, right? But of the 4 throws, 1 hit Deebo Samuel in the hands. He dropped it. 1 drew a 40-yard defensive pass interference penalty. So actually, his accuracy percentage on the 40 throws was 50%, which is outstanding. So it's depending how you look at it. It depends on how you look at it, you know? Also, the
absolutely.
40-yard DPI, when does Jimmy Garoppolo ever get those? That's not part of the offense. You don't even have the opportunity to get those. The Niners are going to go from an offense that gets like 5 or 6 DP that draws 5 or 6 DPIs a year to like 10 to 12, 4. That's important. That's important. 1 a game as opposed to 1 every other game.
I don't know if you caught that chart that somebody tagged you in over the weekend. A beautiful chart of every single throw that Jimmy made last season. Now, I had the individual game charts. I didn't have a full season chart. I love that chart that was thrown together. He only threw 27 passes over 20 yards last season. Only 27, and he completed 11 of 27. Trey Lance, in the 2 games he started, threw 8 such passes, was on pace. If he had played 15 games, would have had 60 attempts to
Yeah.
Jimmy's 27.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the difference here.
And
It's a
and
big
that's why you
difference.
see, like, even though the completion percentage was off by 10%, the yards per attempt was the same. It was
Right.
virtually the same. And I think that's a more important statistic because I just think it is.
Well,
Completion percentage, you could goose that up by throwing backwards. Yards per attempt,
again,
you can't manufacture that.
completion percentage is, first of all, it's the most overrated stat in the game. Let's be clear about that. And secondly, we don't know exactly what the installs are and what they're working on. One thing I can tell you is from the little bit of film that I've seen that has come out, I'm not going to say film, but little bit of footage that's come out, I constantly see Trey going through his progressions, which is major improvement. He's going through every progression, it seems like every play. And I'm not seeing a lot of wobbly passes. Like I'm seeing improvement there, and I'm seeing touch on his throws. That's 3 improvements I'm seeing from short video clips that are posted every single day.
Yeah, I agree. Let me tell you where I'd like to see him improve. And here's one thing he can control that can increase his completion percentage.
Right.
The throws behind the line of scrimmage, the throws in the flat. Like, those should be 90% completion throws. And he misses them too often. And it's often like, hasty in the flat. Now, hasty's about 5'9", but it's like just throwing too high over a running. Like, there's a lot of easy throws Kyle can scheme up. But if he can't have confidence that you're going to hit those 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, he won't call them. And that's on you. And we saw that, like, in the end of the Houston game, he had a great game. And then Kyle called that screen down the right and he missed it. He came back and just lit into him. I can only imagine what he said. Like, dude, this is the NFL. You have to hit that. And, we make fun of Jimmy Garoppolo a lot, but he hits that. And the Niners have really good players who can do stuff. Kittle, Juszczyk, Deebo, you got to hit that. And I think he can. I've seen him do it. I'd like him to do it at a higher, like 7 of 11 to Mitchell. That should be 10 of 11. You know what I'm saying? And he can do that, but that's a great place for him to focus. The tray-ups, the layups. He's like a 3-point specialist that clanks the layup. Man, you got to work on your moves around the basket, left hand, right hand, the easy stuff.
But see, that's what I also have seen a lot of you guys posting those videos. That every single day they're working on those quick passes.
Yes.
Right before they start.
And he's improving. He hit Juszczyk.
Amazing coaching.
Yeah.
Amazing
really,
coaching.
It's more like he does a good job when he has time to like float it, but it's when he's under duress and he's off his back foot, he'll fire, hits check down, high. Like you got to find a way to bring it down a little bit, even if you're throwing it hard. Maybe throwing to Juszczyk instead of Hasty would help because Juszczyk can extend and catch those passes.
Yeah. I mean, he also has this habit where he likes to go through his full throwing motion. Yeah. And Crocker pointed this out, and I think it was a great observation. He likes to go through the whole motion, even if it's supposed to be just like a quick flick of the wrist. Like he doesn't have that change of pace yet, right? So he's got to work on that.
Yeah, to me, like he loves throwing down the field because he loves throwing hard. When it's time to throw the swing pass in the flat, like, no, dude, you got to not throw that hard. This is just a little screen. And there's those certain pitchers in baseball that throw really hard, but when they feel the ground ball, all of a sudden it's like, how do I get the ball to first base? I get a little bit of that vibe with Trey Lance. I'm not saying he's that kind of player, but that's what we're describing and what he needs to. That's one thing he can work on.
Well, and that's one thing that I've said, even when he was coming out of the draft, one area of opportunity, arm angles, right? He can make all the throws, but the arm talent is different than just throwing really hard. He has that down. He has the velocity, but arm angles is something Zach Wilson is really, really good at. Right. And that's an area of opportunity for Trey. It really is.
Sean says on your not so good today, you mentioned Deebo being 5 to 10 pounds heavier. We're going to talk about that next. Would I be wrong in thinking Coach Kyle wants Deebo to keep the weight considering he'll get? No, I think you're wrong. I think the Niners list Deebo at 215. They want him at 215. He was at 215 last year. Right. He was the best player in the league. He looks to me, and I don't know. I'm not the guy at the carnival that can guess your weight, but I knew what 215 Deebo looked like. To me, he looks like 223. And running like it. And, he's still got more than a month. But usually the best players in the league come into camp in midseason form. They don't get there. Hey, as long as he doesn't hurt himself, he should get there. But it's like, come on, man. Come on, Deebo. Ayuk's there. Kittle's there. What? You're the best player in the team. Have some pride.
Yeah, this is year 4.
The coach says this is unreal. A couple bad days and you're rolling out the dream team Johnny Cochran defense. Thank you. I thought I would have been a good lawyer. I appreciate that. You can't even judge the kid without mentioning Jimmy's name. That excuse has an expiration date on it. Okay, we won't talk about Jimmy anymore, but we're going to talk about Jimmy on his own. We won't compare them anymore in the rest of today. That's fair enough. We will judge Trey on his own merits. Coach, thanks for the $10. I appreciate you. Put me on your tax return. Ern says, what up, Grant Jesse? What's your overall grade for Trey Lance so far in camp? That's a good question. It's a really good question.
That's a you question.
What do you think? How about a B? How about a B? You can't say that he's excelled. His number, the numbers are what they are. It's going against a top 3 defense in the league. Deebo has yet to show up. I mean, he's had some days where he's gotten the best of him. He's improved. I think it's been a positive experience for him, even though he's had some days where he's gotten his freaking ass kicked. B, I don't know. Based on what you're hearing, is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, I'm not there, so I don't even want to pretend like I'm seeing every single thing. But yeah, I would say it's probably around that area. I mean, it's certainly not an A. It's got a lot of improvement, right? And this is what young kids have to go through. Like these are the times to improve. These are the times to make mistakes. So I think that's probably a fair grade.
Abu Marco 23 says, could the reason they aren't cutting Jimmy until final cuts be, God forbid, Trey gets injured during the preseason games or practices against our D? Distraction might be worth the insurance Jimmy gives. I would think so. They don't have to say it, but as long as he's here, that all that insurance stuff is on the table without being said. Yeah, if Trey gets hurt, they can be like, hey, we'll give you $27 million to be our starting quarterback. What do you say? He could say no, but then he'd lose a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. It's certainly insurance, and it's certainly to keep him from going somewhere else and having a good chance at playing.
But again, Jimmy's not even in the meeting, so he's not really prepared to take over if something bad were to happen.
They don't owe Jimmy anything. Like, they owe him nothing.
No. Flav says, couldn't take Mac after the stupid trade up. Agree. Look, if they had stayed at 12 and taken Mac, everyone would have been like, oh, great move.
Oh, for sure.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right?
1,000%.
When you go up to 3, that was dumb because the Patriots didn't do that. If he was really honest, he would say Trey isn't close to being ready, but has to play him because of what they gave up. Time for Shane to deal with the mess he made. Hey, that's a fair point, Flav. I don't know if that's how Shanny feels. But what Shanahan can do if he thinks Trey isn't ready, and that doesn't mean anything, but ready would be like, ready to play quarterback the way Shanahan envisioned him at his peak. If he ain't ready to do that, there's other things he can do, and we're seeing that. It's the Lamar Jackson offense. It's the Jalen Hurts offense. And you may not want it, but if Kyle feels that that's how he has to win with Trey, he's going to do it. And if he runs Trey Lance into the ground and Lance gets hurt, Kyle will, Kyle always washes hands of this stuff. I'm sorry, but I have a feeling that Kyle is gonna run this guy into the ground, and I feel bad because I don't know if that's the best way to develop a quarterback. But if he has to win. He has to win.
Ready is a relative term because is he ready to the ability, like you said, that Kyle fully wants him at? No. But you can't get there unless you play either. So it really is a catch-22.
But can you get there if you're going out there and throwing 15 times a game and running 15 times? You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's how they use him this year, are you really developing him, or are you just making the best out of a situation for a couple, 2-3 years? That's, to Flav's point, I'm curious because I don't know where Kyle's head is right now. He's talking about Mac Jones. Makes me wonder.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see week 1 to week 18. We better see massive improvements. That's, and that's all we can ask for.
Because again, I feel like we saw what it should look like against Houston. For the idea that he's going to somehow regress and have to be used as Tim Tebow or Jalen Hurts is wrong. But I don't know what Kyle's thinking. And I noticed in these move the ball periods, third down, red zone, there's a whole lot of quarterback design runs.
I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that real quick because I said that on the Cohn phone when I called in, but I do want to reiterate it. Again, if the one thing that you cannot say about Trey Lance is that he's not a hard worker and he's not intelligent. Like everybody says that those two things are true about Trey Lance, even his biggest critics. So if that is the case, Trey Lance is going to get the best out of his abilities. What that is, none of us know. But what I can say is this: if you think a player with that mental capacity has somehow regressed in a 7-month time span after the Texans game based off of some practices, I think that's where the mistake is being made on what people really think of Trey Lance. I think that's where people are going to be surprised because I promise you, he has not regressed from that point.
I don't think so. J.R. Beckeld says, Grant, the media can go round and round over Trey Lance, but at the end of the day, if the NFL could go back and redraft, Trey Lance is first quarterback drafted. Oh, I don't know about that. I think there's a healthy amount of Trey Lance skepticism. He's still the invisible man. There's like this much evidence. Which is why we overanalyze everything. Flav says, how many drops before people realize it's the gross wobbly balls with no touch that Shant can't get behind? That are the reason. Well, Kittle can catch his passes. Ayuk can catch his passes. Juice can catch his passes. I mean, really, right now it's Deebo who drops everyone's passes. Jennings. Look, if Kittle couldn't catch Lance's passes, I'd be like, all right, fair. But he can. Deebo has legitimately bad hands. I'm sorry. Deebo, prove me wrong. I don't know.
Here's what I find really ironic. Flav, and I know that you're on this side of things, just like a lot of other people are with Trey. You can't have it both ways. You cannot say that he went to NDSU, played against a bunch of milkmen, and then also in the same sentence say those milkmen had no problem catching his passes, but these professional receivers do. That it doesn't make sense. One thing cannot, like, you know what I mean? Like, they both can't be true. So if he's playing with a bunch of scrubs and low level talent and against a bunch of low level talent, how come those guys never had an issue catching the football, but all of a sudden these professionals do? By the way, Grant, maybe you can prove that wrong, or maybe I'm wrong. But again, I don't think the wobble is as prominent as it was last year. And I also think that he's figured out some of the touch that he didn't have last year. So that excuse, I don't think, is built in anymore.
Agree. Again, Kittle catches his passes just fine. Ayuk catches his passes just fine. Deebo drops everyone's passes. I don't think this is necessarily a wobble issue. And yeah, I'm trying to get under Deebo Samuel's skin. I'm quality control. Deebo, you just got the biggest contract the wide receiver in this franchise has ever gotten. Don't be the guy who regresses after you start. Don't be that guy, because I know you're not that guy. I hope you're not that guy. How has Odom been doing? You know, I like Odom. Odom came into camp in tip-top shape, and he's clearly the second best athlete among the safeties after Jimmy Ward. Way more athletic than Talanoa. And, you know, God love Tavarius Moore. He just doesn't seem to have the same speed he had before the Achilles. I could be wrong, but I think Odom's flying around.
Well, that's good. I mean, they need some depth at that position.
He hasn't made any plays in coverage, but he'll make touch tackles in the backfield. Seems like he is fast and aggressive. He stopped Deebo on an end around once. Official B&A Music 88 says, what?
Well, I was going to say, it's not like these safeties were getting a lot of interceptions anyways. Like, when have they ever intercepted a lot of passes? That hasn't been a thing in the past. So,
Official B&A Music 88 says, just want to see new plays. SF is done with Jimmy Garoppolo because only knew about 12 after 4 years, and Kyle had to stop calling play action with his back turned. Yeah. Only knew about 12 plays after 4 years. Is that what you're saying? 12 plays? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, man, you see a whole lot of play action now in camp. A whole lot of deep throws. It might work against a worse defense. I heard Trey's move the ball completion to 67%. Maybe.
There's a spreadsheet out there that says it.
Damn, did Lombardi put that out there?
Yeah. He said that his move the ball was around 40-something% last year, and this is where he's made a major improvement, is in the move the ball periods.
Gotta love David. Mm-hmm. Hey, nice, David. What you talking about? Willis says Deebo can afford a nutritionist now. Cut carbs, man. Yeah. Carbs. I don't know what it is. Eat less. That's what I do when I try to lose. Greg says, is there any way Trey has regressed from last year to this year, in your opinion? No. I haven't.
Absolutely not. It's 0% chance.
It's a really good question, because I feel like people are kind of suggesting that is the case without saying it. So no. DC, thank you very much. Double B Studios, what's up, bros? What's up, dude?
Bro?
Good to see you. Kid Trixie says he said he wanted Mac and Trey before the trade at 12, not at 3. Okay. Well,
still didn't need to be said.
Keep it to yourself, partner. Hate the Game says, what will stop him from improving besides injuries? What will stop him from improving besides injuries? Who will we lead the league in drops? No, because Kittle and Ayuk are going to get a lot of targets. Did I mention that Ayuk has 37 targets and Ayuk is going to get hella targets this year? I didn't think I really want to stress that. This dude is the guy on this team. Anyway, what will stop him?
I would say injuries is the only thing. I just don't foresee him staying stagnant. The way that he works and cares about the game, I just don't see it.
Well, I mean, there's also the coach. Like, Kyle needs to prove that he can do this. He's not somehow an impediment to this process.
Absolutely.
So I guess there's that. I think there's 2 more. Stephen Pryor says maybe Trey should take a page out of Rogers' book and go to Peru on a hallucinogenic retreat. Work for Aaron. 2 MVPs. Just saying. Trey's too young.
He's so weird, man. Aaron Rodgers is so weird. So weird.
Double B Studio says all quarterbacks around the league are struggling. I think training camp is perfect for mistakes, right? Jimmy Garoppolo not struggling, though. He has thrown 0 incomplete passes in training camp. 0. Kenny
Dr. Disrespect also not struggling.
Never heard of that guy. He's there. I'm like, who is this guy? And then I go on, he's at 4 million subscribers on YouTube. I'm like, oh, well.
And he's throwing 55-yard passes down the field. They're like, what the hell?
He's like 6'6", legitimately.
Yeah, he's a tall dude. Yeah,
He's a very famous video game player. I bet my nephew would
I
have been
don't.
so.
I didn't know
My
who he
nephew's
was
12.
until this.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna ask my nephew if he knows who Dr. Disrespect is. He probably would be way more excited to hang out with him than me. Although I really
probably.
would. Hold on.
I
Hey,
don't think you
hey,
read that comment. Yeah, that was my
yeah.
bad.
Hey Grant, love your show. Thanks for being real all the time. What are your thoughts on cornerback Kenny Crawley coming over from the Saints? He gave up a catch today.
I mean, he's a camp body at this point, so they can
Yeah.
get through it with the injuries. That's really all it is.
Jeffrey says, is Sermon and TDP really not better than Wilson? Really?
Oh,
Wilson is like a slightly smaller, more compact, harder running, quicker, more explosive version of Sermon. And TDP, I need to see him in a game because he doesn't have any finesse. He doesn't juke. I mean, I've seen him. He just runs hard. And so I want to see how that's going to work. Sermon's trying to make all these cuts. I don't think he's getting anywhere. I think it's basically Wilson. It's the same guys as last year. It's Wilson, Mitchell, and Deebo. I don't see anything changing that at this point.
Wilson just can't stay healthy. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Hold on. Gammon says, how do you not know who the doctor is, aka the do I look like someone who watches other people play video games?
No clue.
No, I don't play video games myself. Sorry, I'm a boomer. Ricky says the other day, Coward says Giants should trade for Jimmy because fights are breaking out between coaches and players at Giants because Jimmy is a winner. Buy or sell his take.
Sure.
I'd love to see him go try to win with the Giants. I don't think he could. But if they want
Here's the thing, is a team that's not competitive and making the playoffs, why pick up a couple extra wins? It doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't make any sense.
Like, what are you doing? Okay. It's first year of a head coach. Like, you're not on the hot seat. What are you doing? Okay.
Right.
All right. Let's get off Lance for a second. Let's talk Deebo Samuel. You haven't seen him. I don't know if you've seen pictures, video. To me, he just looks a little bit bigger than he should be. And then on the field, I feel like the results are showing that. He's caught 9 passes and 17 targets, which is way below what from Lance, which is way below what he should be, considering Kittle and Ayuk are catching higher rates. He's tried to run deep a lot of times and hasn't made. When he has made separation, he's dropped the ball. Other times he hasn't gotten open. I don't know. I mean, it's understandable. He was in a holdout. There was a whole ordeal all offseason. But I'd hate to think that he's the kind of player that was in pursuit of a bag, not in pursuit of perfection. Because we grew up on Jerry Rice. And Jerry Rice was the kind of guy who was a legendary practicer. It meant something for him to dominate practices and to be in shape all the time because he was in pursuit of perfection. And to me, that's what we thought Deebo was going to be. And I'm not saying he's not, but dude, you had 0 catches today. Like, I didn't cover Jerry Rice, but I think he would have been pissed if he had a practice like that. And are you? Because you haven't done it yet. Like, show up. Where are you? I'm looking for you. I don't see you. Ayuk's there. Kittle's there. Where are you? You're the best player on the team. They freaking need you, man. If you're going to be like, okay, Deebo, this team's going nowhere. So I don't know. They got a month. He's got a month. But this is like, to me, maybe the biggest story in camp. And no one wants to talk about it because how do you really talk about someone's weight and all this stuff? But it's like, I don't know, man. Deebo. Play well.
Yeah, I think this certainly should be a bigger story, but I'm going to try to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I think it's probably hard to work out fully while also trying not to get injured because you do want the bag. And the bag's important. I mean, at the end of the day, that's lifetime generational wealth that he's trying to get. You really can't risk it. And so it's like, yeah, you're doing some things to stay not completely out of shape, but you can't go crazy. You can't throw on cleats and get on turf and risk a foot injury, right? So I'm hoping that, all right, now that they got it figured out, he's obviously working as hard as he can. There's no worry anymore, and that he gets in shape by week 1, which I think he will. But if he doesn't, and he has a setback from an injury, God forbid, this could be 2020 all over again. So hopefully he can stay healthy while he's getting in shape. And so that way he's just fully ready for the season and can hit the ground running because they are going to need Deebo Samuel. I mean, he's a difference maker.
To me, Deebo and Kittle had something in common. Like, young, on the first contract Kittle, first contract Deebo, they were two of the most violent offensive players in the league. And they were two of the hungriest offensive players in the league. And just watching them was like, wow, these guys are throwbacks. They'll do whatever it takes. They're ultimate team players. And then they get paid. And I don't know about Deebo, but I know with Kittle, still a great player. But it's different now. He's a little bit older. He has to protect his investment. It's different. Still a great player. I don't want to see Deebo be like that. I want the old Deebo back because that Deebo was the MVP of the league, I thought. And if he's going to now be like in self-preservation mode, yikes, that's why maybe you should have traded him for Jameis Williams during the draft. I don't know. But look, this is why Bill Belichick doesn't invest in a lot of second, or he used to not invest in a lot of second contract guys. You know, like these are the rich guys. These are the guys that have to wonder, like, do I really love football? How much? Or if I do, like, have to weigh that against protecting your investment, which is your body's tough, man. You always want those guys who are out to prove themselves. Deebo, please be out to prove yourself because you have more to prove.
Which, by the way, Shanahan's done a good job of building a team like that. Unfortunately, when you build a team like that, you do risk a lot of injury. And I got to be honest, I have a hard time figuring it or thinking that Deebo's all of a sudden not going to give 100% effort. I mean, this is a guy who you look at that Tennessee Titan game. I mean, that dude was dying on the field. And then again, the NFC Championship, I mean, this kid gives everything he has. He's the ultimate competitor. Once he's out there playing, I got to imagine he gives everything he has.
But the difference, here's why I bring this up. It's like, it's not like we're talking about Nick Bosa, okay? Nick Bosa has injury issues too, but no one has ever, he's never come into camp being like, hey, Bosa's got 10 pounds on, I look like, right? He's not that guy. Deebo did in 2020. Deebo did in 2020. In 2019, he looked great. 2021, he looked great. 2020, he was like 230. Now he had a broken foot, but he's done this before, and I hope he doesn't do it again. I think the Niners were hoping 2020 was an aberration, but they had these questions, which is why this whole process got so weird. It's not going to get weird with Bosa. They've already said Bosa's been a pro since he was 3. They have literally no questions about Bosa other than him getting rolled up or whatever. So with Deebo, they do have these questions. They exist. Deebo, prove us wrong.
The only question you have about Bosa are his muscles too big and to rip apart tendons and ligaments. Like that's basically it. It's crazy. That dude's he's something different.
Mark says, Grant, how is Deebo's butt looking? You can imagine. Use your imagination, Mark. Jeff says, are we not going to offer JC Treader because he's a part of the Players Association? I don't understand why aren't addressing this issue. Possible. He is the president of the Players Association. He wrote a column up for their website. You can read it on how agents should push for fully guaranteed contracts. Maybe JC Treader wants a fully guaranteed contract. We'll see.
I'm sure he does. And there's a precedent to be set by him being the leader of the players organization. And he's a guy who does have knees that are kind of shot. So while he will play, he's not going to practice. And I find it hard pressed that any team's going to give him a lot of guaranteed money past a year, which he's probably going to hold out until somebody becomes really, really desperate. AKA the Bucks were very close today with their second center going down. I guess it was just cramps, but it could have been bad.
Matthew Sanders says easy for Belichick to do that with the GOAT quarterback famous for distributing passes to the entire core. Brady would throw to a cheerleader if it meant a TD. Well, yeah. What's wrong with that?
Of course he would.
What's wrong with that? Joe says, great camp coverage. I feel like Juice will have his best and most impacting season yet. Yeah, that's an underrated storyline. Just Juice getting the ball. That's all. Also, today, a lot of third down stuff, a lot of Juice on the field. It took him 6 years to figure out good blocker and receiver. Like, why is Hasty the third down HBU's check?
That's 100%.
Hasty? What?
Hasty?
I mean, Hasty's like explosive and stuff, but he never catches the ball or blocks anyone. So, like, he's freaking.
Who's checks the guy, man? He should be.
Should be. Last one. Hold on. One more. Nope, that was it. Okay, moving on. What questions do you have about the 49ers team, roster, whatever, that you think will be answered Friday night when they play the Packers?
Man, I don't know if we're going to fully get these answers, but a couple things that I'll be looking for is who's that third receiver? Like, is Ray Ray really making a push, and is Jennings letting the ball slip through his hands quite literally and losing that position that we thought he was a lock for? Also, the running back position, how does that play out? That's going to be a big, big key. Sounds like Elijah Mitchell is going to be the number one guy, but at least one of these guys is going to get cut, possibly two. And if that's the case, who are those players going to be? In fact, it's going to be two. And they have six guys right now that legit should or could make this roster and could make a lot of rosters. Guys that may and probably won't slip through and make it to the practice squad. So who are they willing to lose? Is it a Wilson because he's older and on a 1-year deal? Is it a Hasty because really he's a third down guy and maybe they go use check? Is it Sermon because he's not developing the way that they hope? Is it Mason because he's the undrafted guy? Those are questions that I'm looking to be answered. We're not going to get the answers 100%, but we're certainly going to see a little bit of a glimpse into who these guys really are. And running backs, I think, are the players that you really, really, really benefit from the most of having pads and playing a real game and seeing what they really are, because these practices, you're not really going to get to see that a lot. The games is where you're going to see who the real running backs are.
Yeah, it feels like the moment of truth. I mean, when you watch practices, you get glimpses of things here and there, but you don't really know. And you'll see, who breaks tackles, who's fast, who shies away from contact, who can get the edge, all those things. Who plays fast, who's courageous. I want to see that. But also, moment of truth for the offensive line. They're not going to be game planning, but one-on-one's a one-on-one. A reach block's a reach block. I don't even expect Trent Williams to play, but what does Aaron Banks look like? Have we even seen him we've seen him in one preseason game ever. What does Aaron Banks look like? What does Brendel look like? What does Brunskill look like? What does Burford look like in a real game? Those are all questions I have, because I think Niner fans should be really concerned about left guard and center. I think the Niners should be really concerned about that. Right guard right now seems promising.
If Trent Williams is not going to play, and I assume that he's not, I also would prefer that Lance didn't play. That's just me. You know what I mean? It's already going to be shaky up the middle. I personally don't want to see it, but he also has to get his reps. Okay. So it's kind of
how many design quarterback runs is Kyle going to call for Trey Lance in preseason?
He didn't do that last year, did he? None, right?
No, I don't remember. No, I don't think so. I can't remember actually.
I don't know. Did he keep it and run in preseason? I don't know. Anyway.
I feel like they didn't. Yeah. Offensive line. Also, nickel corner. And not only nickel corner, but corner depth, right? They don't have Mosley. They don't have Ward. So now we're really going to get a full competition of the rest of the guys, because they have 4 or 5 guys that really could be the extra guys that make this team. Let's assume that Verrett's ready for week 1. He's a lock, but he's also not playing in any of these games. So these other guys that are playing, who gets cut? Who doesn't make it? Are they willing to cut an Ambry Thomas if he's not good enough? I mean, you spent a 3rd-round pick on him last year. I'm curious to see what moves they make in that secondary.
And then also, Frank, we got to bring up Trey Lance. I mean, let's be honest. When this game is over, we're going to spend most of our time in the instant reactions talking about how Lance looks. So that's – I don't know that we're going to get a lot of questions answered, but does he look ready? Does he look confident? How does he look compared to last year? Because ultimately, these training camp practices, no one cares when they start doing the preseason games. I'm curious, like, how does he look? Does he look just like – because last year in preseason, what we saw was throwing too hard on the short stuff, him being responsible for some of those drops, but then also him getting into a groove, having some really nice passes in LA, and then getting hurt. So what does he look like compared to last year in games? I want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, does he look – one thing that I've said about Trey is it's organized chaos. That's what I felt like we were watching a lot with him. Mm-hmm. Does he look more calm, cool, and collected in the pocket? Like that he belongs there and he knows what he's looking at, and the game has quote unquote slowed down for him. I'm curious to see that.
Because Kyle is all about, he was telling us that you can really develop a quarterback on the bench. And I'm sure there are certain things you can teach a quarterback when he's not playing, but I always feel like it's better to play. So, okay, dude's been here, right? He learned your system. Tough system to learn, right? Year 2. Let's see it, man. Show us him executing. Because it's hard to see him execute in practice when the offensive line's getting beat and the wide receivers aren't getting open. Like, how do you really execute? What do? Throw to cover receivers? Throw picks? You don't. You scramble. You buy time. So let's see. Can this offense execute pass plays on time this year? I'd like to see it. They can sometimes. The play action bootleg stuff, getting them out of the pocket, but quick throws, quick game. Can they do that?
You touched on something real briefly there. Did they make the right decision by sitting Lance last year? Right? How much growth does he have to make?
I'd like to know. Sean says, I'm older. I watched Terrell Owens transform from quiet professional playmaker to diva. I'm seeing signs in Deebo. Is Deebo the diva in our future? We'll see. I know what you're talking about. And Terrell Owens, the difference was Jerry Rice left. When Jerry Rice was here, this was Jerry's team. And T.O. was the number 2 receiver. And you have to respect Jerry. Then Jerry left and T.O. became the number 1 receiver. And, I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame. But I felt that he was like the worst teammate of all time. Every game, he'd have 13 targets. He'd be like, I didn't get the ball enough. Jeff Garcia's bum. The offensive coordinator's a bum. It's like, wow. And no one ever does stuff like that in the NFL anymore. He used to do it all the time. I thought it was messed up. And then
Antonio Brown made a run at it. He tried to be like that.
For a Hall of Fame wide receiver, a whole bunch of teams got rid of him during his prime.
One thing I'll say, though, too, is that one thing that we didn't question, though, about Terrell Owens was his work ethic. That was never in question, ever.
That's the big point. And he would always make this like, oh, like, you're questioning me? Why don't you come check me out? Look at these sit-ups. Check out my six-pack. Like, Deebo's
in a driveway.
Deebo's over here like the dude wearing the T-shirt in the shallow end. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, It's not the same look. That's all I'm saying.
I remember.
T.O. was the original DK.
Yeah. I remember T.O. catch 2 crying right after multiple drops in the game. Very humble kid. He was not that guy.
He went up to Mariucci. I was a huge Niner fan back then. And he went up to Mooch after the game and was crying and thanking him for believing in him and going back to him because he had dropped a few passes earlier. Yep. 3 years later, he'd flip out if he only got 13 targets. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that happened. Great player, though. And I maintain he was better than Moss because Moss was straight. They would call a pattern where Moss would have to run over the middle. He would just run some other route, and he'd be like, no. He ran like 2 routes. Very good at those, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Owens was tough. 3 more, and then we'll move. Hold on. Can 2 running backs be traded for 2 O-linemen? Realistic? No. Running backs are a dime a dozen, and offensive linemen are very hard to come by. Sorry. Steven says, what kind of numbers would Ayuk need to put up to compel Niners to sign another huge contract? I think that's going to be a story for next offseason. Wide receiver market has gone wild. Doesn't seem hopeful. Yeah, but if the Niners are over here throwing 20 passes a game, Ayuk just won't get enough targets to get Deebo money. And he's not going to play running back. So that's one way they can sort of suppress Ayuk's value is run 40 times a game. They might.
Well, also 2 things are at play here. One, he was drafted in the first round, unlike Deebo. So he has a 5th-year option that they get to take advantage of. True. And Deebo's on a 3-year deal. When he's in the last year of that deal, that'll be Ayuk's first year of his deal. So they can make it work.
Also, as we've seen, Ayuk's not going to get re-signed next year. Just like Bosa isn't getting extended this year. Ayuk's extension, if it happens, will be 2 years from now. Right?
For sure.
Mark says surprise final cut other than Jimmy.
Hyder?
It's a good one.
Jeff Wilson?
Sermon. I think Jeff Wilson is good and is going to make this team. I think he looks like 2020 Jeff Wilson to me. But again, we'll see that in the preseason.
You think there's any shot they cut Ambry Thomas? Because that would be a surprise.
He would be, Mark. Yeah, he's in the running for Zakel. But I mean, Zakel wouldn't be surprised at 6th round yet. Yeah. Johns George says, has Sudfeld or Purdy played with the ones? No. Double B Studio says, I'm sipping coffee out of my quality control. Hey, nice. And yes, coffee because it's raining here in Sedona. I hear Sedona's really nice. My mom went there, said it was gorgeous.
Gnarly thunderstorms in Arizona. Just like here in Tampa, actually.
Okay, let's talk Jimmy Garoppolo, but not in relation to Trey Lance. So I think most Niner fans have given up on the idea, the hope that the Niners could ever trade Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think the Niners have given up on it. And I think they've quietly been confident that Cleveland's going to come around this whole time. I think that this is what this is all about. Yeah, I mean, they don't want to just cut him and let him go to Seattle, but I think they really think they're going to trade him to Cleveland because I think they think there's no way the NFL doesn't extend this Deshaun Watson suspension to a full season. The judge came out and made it 6 games, but she laid out all this evidence that was damning. And the NFL is pointing to it and saying all these things are the things that we found, and we feel the right thing to do is extend the suspension. It feels like that's what the rest of the country wants. And it would be outrageous and probably controversial if that doesn't happen. And if and when it does, the Niners will be waiting for the Browns' desperate phone call. I think that's what they're banking on.
Yeah, I think that's the hope, right? But the problem with that is that these things can drag out. Like, okay, so if the league says we're going to suspend you for a year, they can go to court with it. And then really the suspension, whatever it is, whether it's 6 games a year, whatever, doesn't even happen till next season. Like there's a possibility that Watson plays this whole year and is suspended next season.
That's crazy.
If this gets drug out. So I don't think, again, the Browns are the one team that if they get it figured out, certainly would still make a lot of sense. I just don't see it happening, man. I think he's going to get cut. But yeah, they are definitely holding out hope for something, and that's fine. I mean, at this point, you're not. It's whatever, you know.
John Lynch said something. He said, "I believe there's going to be a great ending for both sides with us and Jimmy, just the way there was with us and Deebo." It's like when you cut him,
what does that even mean?
Cuts, like, what are you talking about? So, and John isn't like a bullshit artist. Like when John and Kyle say something on the record, to me, it feels like they think they're telling the truth. So where is this confidence coming from? You really think the NFL is going to bail you out with this Watson thing and Cleveland's going to call? Well, I can't rule it out. It's a possibility, but I'd be surprised if even if, okay, let's say Deshaun Watson gets suspended for the year and there isn't an appeal of that and he actually can't play. If you were Cleveland, would you trade for 1 year Jimmy Garoppolo and pay him $27 million, or would you like sign Colin Kaepernick or sign Cam Newton or roll with Jacoby Brissett? What would you do?
I would sign Jimmy. Now, if this was 3 months ago, I'd probably look into like a cap. I think Cam shot. Maybe I would have looked into somebody else. But for me, Jimmy Garoppolo knows that offense. Like he's the one guy that can come in day one and run that offense because he's played in it, essentially. He's played in a more extended version of it under Shanahan. So he's the one guy that you know as a head coach who's probably on the hot seat if they don't get to the playoffs this year. If that's the case, then guess what? Jimmy Garoppolo is your guy. So I would probably be calling for Jimmy.
This is a good point, though. If he appeals and is suspended next year, let me just look at the cap, the base salary.
Oh, it's significant. We're talking about a difference of like $30-40 million probably.
Yeah. So real quick, his base salary this year is $1 million. If he gets suspended this year, I think this was by design. He doesn't lose that much money. Next year, his base salary is $46 million.
Yeah, that's a great point. No, that's a great point.
So he
may
not want to. And honestly, if the NFL suspends him for a full year, even though he was never charged with a crime, would there be a lot of people being like, "This is outrageous. Deshaun Watson's a victim"? Some would, but I don't think a lot of people would.
No,
I wouldn't.
No.
What did the NFL say? Predatory behavior? That came out of Roger Goodell's mouth, right? 4 instances, predatory behavior. How you let him? How? And that's the same as PEDs? I don't think so. 4 instances.
I feel like there was some people that were in the Watson corner, like after he wasn't convicted. And I feel like even that group has started to sway towards like, I can't defend him anymore. Right.
I mean, obviously criminal courts, you need evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. There's no way you're going to get that, but this is different. This is more like preponderance of the evidence. Right. And based on that, that's why he had to settle. That's why he's looking at a suspension. When you look at the preponderance of the evidence, it looks really bad. And all he has to say is, I didn't do it. There's no like counter evidence or counter. I didn't do it. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one word versus the other. There's no physical evidence. I mean that,
So I mean, I understand why he didn't get charged with a crime, but I also understand why he settled a bunch of 30 and is probably going to get suspended for the full year. I get it, and I think the Niners probably correctly duped this out, but I still don't know if Cleveland will give him that phone call. I still don't know if they will. We'll see. Good. Maybe.
I would. I would. And you know what I think of Jimmy, right? But I'm certainly making that call. He's certainly an upgrade over what they've got. He's a guy that can step in day one. They are the one team that can afford the full amount and still carry over money next year.
Yeah,
I would definitely make that call.
I mean, I think that's what John and Kyle think, and I can see it. Because, like, look, if you just roll with Brissett for a whole year, I mean, you be honest, you're not making the playoffs. Be honest. No. And you should, because you're a good team with hella players in their prime and a lot of highly – like, you can't afford to just throw away a year. You got to make something happen this year, even without Watson. So, yeah, you probably should trade Jimmy. That's what I'm saying. Like, guys, Kyle and John could actually come out of here looking smart. Maybe. There's still a possibility where they come out of this looking like, hey, you know what? We were patient. You guys weren't. We got something. What do you think they get if Cleveland
that's it. Okay, I'm glad you asked that because that's the other problem. They gave up a lot to go get Watson. They don't have the assets. I mean, we're probably talking about something similar to the Baker trade. Maybe a fifth that could escalate to a fourth next year. Like that's
a player. Kareem
Hunt.
Hunt.
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
If I'm the 49ers, I'm not taking Kareem Hunt. I'm not paying Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt has had his own issues in the past. Let's be clear about that. 2, he was going to want a lot of money. And 3, that means that's another running back that you like that you're having to cut. I'm not taking Kareem Hunt. I'm not taking a single player unless I think it's somebody that can help me and is not a lot of money. So,
but here's the other way to look at it. Would you rather have a 6th-round pick or Kareem Hunt?
6th-round pick.
Ha! Fair. Kareem?
Yeah.
Sorry, bud.
I'm dead ass.
Yeah, you're a running back. Law office of Grant and Jesse, says Jonathan Chavez.
I like it.
I got compared to Johnny Cochran earlier, so that's high praise. High praise.
Yeah,
thank you.
If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. I get it. Look, can I say this real quick too? Coach doesn't like me very much. He's got it out for me. Ever since I said that I didn't think that Trent Williams should have been signed, and they, who's a great player. Again, I still stand by that.
So maybe he doesn't like me either. Actually, what I learned to Coach, his comments come across much more antagonistic than he really is. He's like me. He does it all with a smile. He's a nice guy, and he is a nice
guy. No.
Yeah.
By the way, a disagreement doesn't mean that we can't.
He disagrees with us a lot of the time, and he brings the heat. He brings the high hard stuff in the comment section, which I appreciate. It's the big leagues.
I mean, listen, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. You don't have to like me. I'm just calling a spade a spade. I don't think he likes me, and that's okay.
You're my cup of tea, Jesse.
Thank you, Grant. I'll always be Grant's cup of tea. That's good. That's important to me. Yeah.
What's up with Frank Gore? I've covered football for 12 years. Let's just wait. I'm not condoning. He was accused of something. Dude, athletes get accused every day. Let's just wait. Sure. Let's just wait. I have no idea what happened. I haven't looked at the facts. More information will come out, and we'll talk about it at that time. But, I mean, dudes get accused every day. I want to know a little bit more before I say something that I can't take back.
Yeah, right? I'll say this. I'll say something, but I'm not going to go too far. If it is what they said it is, that's extremely disappointing, to say the least. But yes, I'm going to hold back in my judgment.
I'll say one more thing too. A lot of people said, throughout the years that covered Gore, man of high character, yada yada yada. Great. You don't know, okay? Journalists don't know athletes. They don't invite you over. You're not friends with them. You know like 5% of them. And so with Gore, no one knows. We'll find out. I don't want to hear people say, "Oh, I know Gore." You don't know Gore. What I know is that my dad told me this. Notoriously the most liked, praised, helpful, friendly athlete of the 70s, O.J. Simpson. OJ. So, niceness, like whatever you think in your 5-minute one-on-one interview, you don't know. That was a business interaction. So I'm just saying, like, we'll see. But I've seen a lot of times where you'd be like, oh, not that guy. Or something happens, of course he would do it, but he didn't. You know what I mean? Like with Reuben Foster, he got in trouble. Oh, yeah, he didn't do it. So,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you have these, you think you know these people, you don't know any of them. So, yeah, let's.
I mean, it's usually the guys that you're like so shocked about. Those are also the best con artists, right? Like they know how to put on
exactly
a show and
exactly the most charming.
Up, so
psychos often are charming. Not that I'm calling anyone a psycho, but I'm just saying.
Yep.
I watched Dexter. The Meg says, can you talk about tight end 2 and 3, please? Who was good? So far, it's clearly Dwelly and Croft. Those are 2 and 3, however you want it. Those guys get reps with the ones, look good in one-on-ones. They beat Hufanga in one-on-ones. Eventually, Warner will come back, and they like him because he's a good blocker, and they're run first team. Like, Dwelly isn't a good blocker. He tries. That's the best thing you can say about him is he gives the darndest effort. And I don't know about Croft. This is a team that could keep 4 tight ends because it's a team that's going to run a lot. They're going to have heavy goal line packages. It could be 4, but those are the guys. Tanner Hudson, I don't think he's one of the guys.
I feel bad for Matthews because I feel like he had a real shot at making the team. I really do because I don't think any of these tight ends are anything to write home about other than Kittle. And I think Matthews had an outside shot at actually making it. So
yeah, I don't know if Matthews can actually block anyone, but Jordan Reed couldn't block anyone. The Niners gave him all kind of snaps. So yeah, right. At least Matthews had some juice at that position. Like Dwelly, I like Dwelly, but I mean, he's the slowest tight end in the NFL, maybe. And then you got Croft, who's like not much faster. So it's too bad that the Niners haven't ever invested in the tight end position ever, because if they had like a second tight end, they could take a little off of George Kittle's plate because he's a great player. He just gets hurt. And now you're telling me he's 28. You need to reduce the workload so he can continue to be great. But no, this year he needs no. I mean, he's the only guy who's dominant. He needs 150 target. So nothing against Dwelly though.
Yeah. It's again, I think Dwelly in another offense could probably flourish. I just don't think this is the offense for him, unfortunately.
That's why the Niners keep him, man. They have these players. We don't know what to do with him, but if we cut him, we know someone else will. So we're going to hold on to him and never give him the ball. But
right.
I like watching the one-on-ones. That's how we got my eye a few years ago. He always wins. Like, he's so slow, but he's huge. And he has this little wiggle at the top of his route. He pushes off just a little bit, and he catches passes way outside his frame. And he's like, how do you stop that? It's like trying to stop Kareem's skyhook. It's just hard to contest that.
You don't have to be fast to get open. You do not have. I mean, Anquan Bolden made a career out of getting open and not being fast. As long as you are strong at the catch point, and there are little tricks that you can use.
You got a little finesse and shake, and he's got it. He gives this little. I mean, Tart couldn't cover him. Hufanga can't cover him. No one can cover him. You'd think they throw to him in the red zone, but Kyle has just so many genius plays that it's like he can't get there. But eventually, they might.
By the way, those are the guys that age well, the ones that were never uber athletic. Like, as things start to fade for them, it's all the same. They're like, I've always been slow. What do you mean?
All I'm saying is I do quality control now for everyone because no one pays me. And 49ers, if you cut Ross, Tampa signed Ross Dwelly, and watch what Tom Brady does with him in the red zone. Watch. That's all I'm saying. Tampa,
they got what's his name? Rudolph? Is that it from Minnesota?
They still have OJ Howard?
I feel like OJ Howard went somewhere else.
Yeah. Would you consider hosting a fantasy football? No. I should.
He doesn't do
fantasy football because it takes a lot of time and then I lose. So it's like time I didn't want to spend and then I lose. And everyone's like, oh, you're the expert, huh? I'm like, it's gambling. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. No, I hate it. I can't stand it. I'll do something, though. Like, that's a good idea. But I want to do some giveaways and stuff. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do.
You got merch to give away, man. What are we talking about?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. All right, guys. That's the show. Jesse, give me an hour 15. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Anytime.
Anything you want to plug on the way out?
Last Second Sports. We're making a push for 6K. So go subscribe over there, man. And
It's great.
listen, even if you are like the coach and you hate me, you can hate me over there.
Yeah.
Just hate me over there also. That's all I'm saying.
I like the coach. He brings dramatic tension to streams. Dramatic tension. I like that.
I love his call-ins. I love his call because he's always got a bone to pick with you. He's always,
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
He's
that.
always going to hold you accountable, which I'm all for it too.
That makes for good TV.
For sure it does.
I think you figured that out. Coach, Jesse, everyone else, thanks for watching. Take care. See you later.